We've got a great show for you today. Matt St. Onge, Associate Principal Solution Architect at Red Hat.
I've been in the Linux community since the mid-90s. It's been a wild journey. I actually started writing my first programs back in the late 70s, wrote my first video game in the early 80s on a hand-built Apple II clone, and then I started working with TRS-80s, VIC-20s, so many of the older names that were household names back in the 80s.
When did you start thinking about embedding?
So when I had first joined Red Hat back in 2015, I got pulled into a very unique telecom project, which ended up becoming my first embedded partner deal. That's what got me in, and the rest is open source history, so to speak. RISC-V is here to stay, and it is the future. It knows no borders. It literally is publicly accessible to the world.
What made you want to write an embedded Linux security book? Hi everybody, welcome to Beyond the Bench, where we discuss taking hardware through production and the stories along the way. My name is Bill Brock, CEO of Peridio, the ecosystem for building and maintaining advanced embedded products. Hey everybody, welcome to Beyond the Bench podcast, Hardware Stories That Matter. We've got a great show for you today. Matt St. Onge, Associate Principal Solution Architect at Red Hat. Matt, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me here, Bill. I'm so happy you asked me to join you.
Yeah, absolutely. We met a few weeks back at the Open Source Summit, and Matt is one of the OGs of the Linux community, and then has also recently launched a book called the Embedded Linux Security Handbook. Near and dear to my heart, everything you're doing in the community and general education in this space. Tell us a little bit more about your background in Linux and how you got started.
I got started with computers at a really, really early age. And as you can tell by all the gray hair, I'm no spring chicken. I actually started writing my first programs back in the late 70s. Wrote my first video game in the early 80s on, it was like a hand-built Apple II clone. And then I started working with TRS-80s, VIC-20s, so many of the older names that were household names back in the 80s. Graduated to Apple IIe, and then, some early x86 precursor machines. And yeah, it's always kind of been a passion of mine. I got really involved with some tech at the latter end of my military career. And when I got out, I got crazy hands-on with Unix systems, and then got introduced to Linux after I played around with SCO Unix for a while in college, and found that this Linux thing was really, really interesting. Didn't really need, custom hardware. Didn't cost me a penny, just a lot of time to download. Well, back in the day, this is before we had even CD burners and stuff. So
Yeah.
it was like downloading 22 RAR files and burning them to floppies over dial-up. And I'm talking, like 300 baud modems, which took forever. And working on all, like 286 computers. And that's what got me hooked. And
That's cool.
Fast forward, 30 years, I've been at Red Hat for a decade, helping our partners build Linux-based products, making them secure, published a book. But I've been in the Linux community since the mid-90s, running user groups and doing all kinds of crazy stuff over the years. And yeah, it's been a wild journey. I don't know how deep you want me to go, but it's been fun.
Yeah. When did you... Yeah, there's a lot of ways we can go, but when did you start thinking about embedding?
Wow. So when I had first joined Red Hat back in 2015, I got pulled into a very unique telecom project, which ended up becoming my first embedded partner deal, and started working with one of my great mentors, Mike Zittermer, who actually is the senior director of the embedded program, and didn't have any dedicated resources back then. So that's what got me in. And then eventually I started working directly for his team, and the rest is open source history, so to speak.
How involved is Red Hat and the embedded Linux space? Do they have specific distros that are Red Hat embedded focused distros? Or I think about Red Hat being more of a commercial enterprise server grade technology.
We don't distinguish different builds for server versus workstation versus IoT device. The bits of RHEL are just RHEL. What we do have are different releases for different platforms,
Okay.
which have vast amounts. I mean, like I think RHEL now consists of over 7,000 packages, and that's not including other third-party repositories, just the ones that we provide. So whether you're talking RHEL for x86-64, RHEL for ARM, Power, or Z series, and as recently as we had announced in our summit this May, where actually some of my own personal hardware was on display. We actually have a release. It's dev preview only. It's not supported. It's meant to get people enticed to join the community and start contributing upstream. But RHEL 10 for RISC-V, which is a personal passion of mine.
Your hardware, what was on what was on display?
P550. It's actually this big box right here.
Okay, cool. Well, so it's like a desktop PC.
It's actually a mini ITX box. The board itself is only about this big, but the case I have it in's got a ginormous power supply and, giant 80 millimeter fan, and it's like all overkill, but yeah, we actually had 2 separate booths. One that I manned most of the time at Summit when I wasn't doing hands-on labs. Literally was the RHEL 10 on RISC-V booth. And, I handed out a few copies of my book there, but actually started to introduce a lot of people that, yes, RISC-V is here to stay, and it is the future. It is definitely something people to look into today, get involved with, not just, testing out the dev preview image, which is rather bare bones, but get involved with Fedora and CentOS streams, which are upstream and people can contribute to and actually really shape and drive the direction of where things are going.
How do you tell your aunt what RISC-V is?
That would be really difficult.
All right, so let's assume we have a slightly more technical audience than your, than Thanksgiving dinner, but not much more. So how do we dumb this down or simplify for the general audience?
I look at explaining the differences of Intel versus ARM versus RISC-V as they're just different chipsets that, built and licensed in different ways by different companies. And what makes RISC-V so different from the other platforms is that, much like Linux, it is an open source standard architecture, which means people can contribute to it. There is not one company that owns it all and is proprietary. Anyone can use it, where that isn't the case with other industry standards like ARM or your x86-64, which is totally dominated by Intel and AMD.
So everybody can adopt and build against the RISC-V spec.
It knows no borders. It literally is publicly accessible to the world. And as we know what has happened with Linux in over 3 decades to other operating systems, I believe RISC-V is going to do to other hardware platforms in the same way in the nearest future. As Linux being open, it grew in adoption, it grew in contributors, it grew in advocacy, and it got better, more secure, more robust, and much more functional as people joined the community, contributed, even if it was just feedback.
Sure.
And helped make things better. And that's what's happening right now in the RISC-V community. Is there are people contributing architecture, contributing feedback, just testing stuff, or even, being advocates. So yeah, I think the RISC-V platform itself is going to be the future of computing for the next 25 years. And
very cool.
I think the other platforms might want to watch out.
Who's early adopter? I mean, you at Red Hat, you have a crazy breadth of customers and access to enterprises that are looking to really innovate with Linux. Who is taking RISC-V most seriously right now? Where are we seeing the action?
Well, from a non-Red Hat perspective, RISC-V has already been out and is in hundreds of thousands of microcontrollers already in the wild. I know for a fact it is in a whole bunch of IoT devices. It's being proposed to be placed in satellites and other aviation-based solutions. But from a what's going to happen in the future perspective, as the standards for RISC-V evolve, The latest being the RVA 23 standard, which is what the major Linux vendors, Red Hat and Ubuntu, are programming against now. That is going to standardize adoption of RISC-V. In the absolute easiest way is to make it, if every hardware manufacturer adheres to that one standard, it doesn't matter which OS you choose. If that OS adopts that standard, the hardware just boots and runs.
Nice.
So you go from having I've got to hack U-boot and I got to do all this other stuff to, it just boots, it runs, and I know my hardware is going to be supported.
How does this compare, and forgive me if I'm in a totally different universe, but ARM System Ready, how are these things related?
So that is also a very, very good question. So ARM System Ready is implying that there is a UEFI BIOS or ACPI that allows for the booting from an ISO to actually install an OS, rather than
Okay.
having to have a pre-built engineered image that you would just throw either on eMMC or flash drive. So it turns the experience to much more like people expect in the Mac and Intel world, where they can just plug in a USB stick and install an OS, rinse, repeat, however many times they like. And it makes it
Got it.
simple. So that's what System Ready really does for the ARM space. And that's what I'm hoping for, that kind of experience as the hardware vendors start to adhere to the RVA 23 standard, that we'll be able to have that, plug and play and install experience, which will make the adoption of RISC-V hyper accelerated.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's elevate a little bit, because we're going to get into just super deep Bill satisfying his nerd questions here. What your book? When did you pivot? What made you want to write an embedded Linux security book?
I didn't. So, and so literally in November 23, November 23. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been,
that would have been a fast turn if it was
yeah, no, it
24.
was November 23. Yeah, because Pact Publishing approached me, say, hey, we were told that you might know something about embedded systems. Would you be interested in talking about writing an embedded book? And to be honest, I was like, let me get back to you. I really don't have the bandwidth for this expletive. And then I kind of ignored it for a few weeks. I talked to some friends, and it was actually an author who's been a good mentor of mine, who writes history and fiction books, and has his own amazing line of books out there. A retired Navy captain named Kevin Miller actually convinced me, hey, Matt, write it. You'll regret not doing it if you don't. So I'm like, okay, you would know because you've written 4 awesome bestseller books already. I'm gonna dive in and let's see what just happens. He goes, yeah, don't expect to get rich, because you won't. So I went into the project understanding that, it could elevate the career. It could, help get the word out there. Ultimately, I use it as a vehicle to help scale the message of building products on Linux is the best product you could build. If you're going to do it, a secure Linux distro is actually going to be your best bet. And so in December of 23, Pact and I got together, and they tossed this outline over the fence that I looked at and actually kind of laughed. I'm like, I'm not writing that. It was just, it looked like something that Chat GPT 3 had tossed over the fence to me and say, oh, this is what we think an embedded book is. I'm like, no. I'm like, if I'm going to do this project, I'm going to create the outline and I'm going to create the content, and it's going to be in my voice. And then they're like,
Yeah, good for
I'm
you.
like,
Yeah.
okay, but show us the outline. So spent a few weeks, threw together an outline, and realized that book was going to probably be about 600 pages. And they were like, whoa, too big, too big. So pare it down. And after a few revisions, we came out with the outline for the book that exists today. But in my head, I had enough planning for basically 2.5 books, because I just couldn't fit it all. They wanted it to be around 300 pages. And
Yeah.
almost, a huge lion's share of that is hands-on labs and exercises.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next. Yeah, that was gonna be my question. How much of it this is like philosophical and guidelines
Yeah, like
versus getting into the
the
nitty gritty?
first four chapters are setting the stage of breaking down what the threat environment is, who the players are, where to get your information, how to apply it, and how to pair, and I use the analogy in the book too, how to pair your OS with the hardware platform to get the results you need to meet the compliance that you need to meet as well. You know, taking a fine wine to that steak dinner, if you will.
Fine wine called CRA
Yeah,
compliance.
or maybe it's a
The
box
most
wine
beautiful
and
of
a
wines.
burger, okay? Pick pick your battles, man. It's like, what's the target audience? What do they really need? And, what are you
Yeah,
willing
yeah,
to
yeah.
spend to make it happen from a hardware resource perspective, and what's the future? Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
so I hope that helps explain that.
No, it helps a lot. And I mean, there's we at Peridio do a lot in this space very clearly. We recently launched a new distro, Avocado Linux. We want to make this world easy for everybody. And it's interesting in our go-to-market, we're super focused on developer happiness, early time to market, etc. And that's like what gets the conversation started. And then 3 calls later, or maybe not even 3 calls, but maybe at the tail end of that first call is like, okay, but yeah, what about CRA? What about the security posture? What about all of this? And it's like you can get people excited with a lot of big promises, big dreams, but at the end of the day, these are mission critical embedded systems and you've got to adhere to a good posture. Otherwise it's a non-starter. So like, what is your guidance for those that are like, where do people start other than buying your book? But like, Clip Notes versions, like what is the first step
Definitely
for
start by
designing a
buying
security
the
posture?
book. It's on Amazon and Pact, but get it from Amazon, you get it faster. That said, where do you start? You have to know your target audience. You have to know literally key personas within your target customer base. What are going to be their driving factors?
So give me a use case.
So
So I have a product. It is a thing. Let's start with the
So
thing.
let's just say we'll use this little RISC-V box as your demo widget here. So this is your product. It is a IoT device that does security work within a industrial facility and
Okay.
protects whatever manufacturing. Little widget. Who's your target audience? It's not the people working the shop floor. It is the people up top who want to ensure the line never stops going. It's running 24 by 7 by 365, whatever, to include whatever planned outage is. But a factory that isn't producing ain't making money. So they've got to keep implementing systems that support the main mission. Security and uptime. Oh, wait a minute. What is it making? And is government compliance an issue? If the answer is yes, then what federal regulations or state regulations or industry standards need I adhere to? And then
Yeah.
understanding who in the food chain is going to be concerned most with and how that's going to apply to your build and what you provide in your product and its life cycle. Because Joe sysadmin that manages it, you make a product, you've got to make it child-proof. He's going to plug it in, it's going to do what it's going to do, and he could care less what it does. It's just one more thing for him to watch over, and most appliances are meant to be black boxes. So the onus for security, for creating and testing patches, is on the product manufacturer to ensure that they're giving their end customer a product that is going to meet and pass their own audits that they're responsible for, so they don't have to do it. Otherwise, they build it themselves.
Yeah, and they
And
can't, build it
exactly.
themselves. I mean, they gotta hire half a dozen Linux experts,
Yeah.
and who wants to? I mean, who wants to
That's
invest in that or maintain that skill long term?
It's
It's
the whole
impossible.
reason
Yeah,
why there's a $100 billion appliance market out there, and Linux appliances are everywhere in every vertical across the globe. They're in manufacturing, they're in transportation, they're in healthcare, they're in, logistics, they're in agriculture. You probably touch 5 or 6 Linux appliances before you even have lunch every day and don't realize it. It's in your cable box. It's in some coffee makers. It's in the entertainment system on the back of the headrest when you're flying on an airplane. It's everywhere, and it's seamless. It just works, and most people don't even know it's there. I mean, it's in MRI machines. It's in just about everything.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, early adoption on RISC-V was on microcontrollers. And when you think about total devices in the world, microcontrollers are 10 to 1 microprocessors. But the big market is the microprocessor market,
Yes.
because people are actually doing hardcore, intense
They're actually
stuff
running
on the
Linux
edge.
rather than just
And that they're running Linux. They're not just running a small RTOS. They're running
correct.
Linux because they need to do things in the world. And that market is massive, and it's underserved. And it's, yeah, I mean, that's, we're preaching to the choir here. And clearly both excited
Yeah,
about this
and
space.
what they're doing right now with RISC-V is there are companies out there building everything from devices of this form factor all the way out to a multi-core 2-socket modular server. There's laptops, there's desktops, and everything in between. It's not just those, little Arduino-like microcontrollers running sensors. It is mushroomed into a actual Linux-based ecosystem that is growing by the day.
Yeah, it's growing huge. It's growing huge. And we won't do a crazy tangent into AI, but chances are if you want to do AI in the field, you're going to need Linux, period. I mean, you can do like some small stuff with a microcontroller, but getting that stuff launched live requires Linux. It requires a dedicated runtime, a lot of nuance and control there. This has been fun, and I could spend my whole time promoting your book and talking
Oh,
Linux,
please do.
but I'm actually no. I want to pivot. I want to hear, well, tell me about your background. You've got a lot of cool stuff, a lot of great imagery. Clearly, what was your, clearly very military inspired themes here. And you got some friends in the space too. So like, let's tell me a little bit about your history there.
So yeah, not only was I into computers, I was into planes and tanks and all kinds of cool stuff when I was young. I actually learned how to fly before I could drive a car. I actually was a member of Civil Air Patrol and learned how to fly small, piston engine planes when I was 14, 2.5 years before I ever touched the steering wheel of an actual automobile. So that also set me off on a very large tangent, much like with tech and computers, and that's a fun story. As you notice, there's a huge amount of aviation stuff behind me. There's a ton of models up on that shelf, and each one has a significance. And that significance being I have actually flown them in real life or flown them in a simulator or multiple simulators. That's a real helmet. Over here to my right, which you can't see, and my office is in utter shambles, I actually have a full FA-18C Hornet cockpit that I've built with components I've built myself and some commercially acquired stuff.
Okay.
As you can see behind me, these are some of the custom flight controls I've built. Tons of Arduino microcontroller work. I mean, I suppose I could probably tilt the camera around, but the lighting's really bad and it's not powered up.
We'll do the Cribs home tour on the next episode.
But yeah, I mean, I'm really, really big into aviation. The back wall is dedicated to the F-14 Tomcat. There's multiple, I don't know if I can even shift, multiple.
You can't help yourself. Yeah.
Ginormous framed works praising that.
That is. So what were you doing in the military?
Well,
Were you flying?
back in the day, my vision was horrible. So I could not fly actually for the military. Man. So I joined the Army and became a paratrooper.
So you still
so
with the planes, just jumping out.
Flying them, I got to ride in them, rappel out of the helicopters and jump around and do crazy stuff and, have fun that way. But it was really, I always really just wanted to fly. And when I got out of the military, I actually did get laser surgery and actually have 2015 vision now and tried to go back in and fly. Like, oh no, it has to be uncorrected vision. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll just fly civilian. I don't care.
So do you still fly today?
I only get a chance to fly like maybe once or twice a year. I don't even maintain a license anymore because I can't afford a plane. I wish I could. I wish I could sell 1 billion copies of the book and actually afford my own plane and parking spot and whatnot. But I find it easier just to have friends that have planes that let me get stick time.
Nice,
So
nice.
much cheaper. I'm like, hey, I'll pay for the gas.
Yeah. Everybody wants a friend with a boat. You need a friend with a plane. Makes sense. Yeah. Well, what's next for the book? What are you doing? What's the road show? How are you promoting it? How are you getting it
Well,
out? I mean, obviously, everybody
so
listening needs to go buy a copy.
I've been, as you saw at the Open Source Summit in Denver, bringing copies of my book, doing book signings, impromptu that I funded. There's an event in planning where I'm going to be hosting a workshop, and Red Hat is going to sponsor a book signing in the future, coming this fall. I'm going to be going. It's still in the planning stages. I don't have data over that yet. I'll be at Embedded World in Anaheim, probably bringing some copies of the book there. I'll be probably hosting a session at the RISC-V Summit in Santa Clara later this year as well. So tons of opportunities to meet the author and get a signed copy of the book. However, if you already got one, bring it and I'll sign it anyway. Appreciate everyone's support. It's been really well received, and I've actually had a lot of partners thank me for saving them some grief of things they didn't know that they didn't know. And that
Yeah.
was the whole
Yeah.
purpose. It really wasn't, about making money, because I really don't make anything off the book. In the process of making the book, I bought like over 30 machines, like 7 monitors, 3 switches. I've got a rack over here, and I got 20 more machines over there, and 3 UPSs. Built out this huge giant lab to create all of those hands-on labs that are actually in the book.
Nice. Well, it's been very well received by our team. My CTO got a copy. We're all going through it internally, and yeah, it's I really enjoyed kind of we had a pregame before the recording, but I mean, you introduced it as the playbook for those building Linux, secure lifecycle, and you called out the best possible user experience. And I think that is such a gap right now for folks building Linux. It's not the sexiest stack, and it's very hard to navigate, and so providing educational material for folks to get things to market and still maintain a high quality of user experience is incredibly important, and it's really an unmet need. So I'm glad you're out there waving the flag and leading the charge on this. It's a big deal. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Well, with that, I think we're in a good spot for today. Matt, thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed this conversation. And next time you come on the show, we'll need to have a roving camera. I want to see that cockpit. So figure out the lighting. I want to get some live action shots of you in there. But really enjoyed it. And for anybody out there listening right now, or those of you who are listening, please check out this book, Packed, and Amazon, the Embedded Linux Security Handbook. So thanks again, Matt.
Thanks, Bill.
I hope you have a great day. All right, everybody, just a quick reminder, this podcast is presented by Peridio, the ecosystem for building and maintaining advanced embedded products.